When I was a younger man, I always felt this need to prove myself and get this external validation from the world. So I would post stories about everything I did, tell my friends about how much I could bench or how much distance I could run, and every time I felt a hint of criticism, I would get quite upset and become defensive. But things look quite different today. That need to prove myself to the world and win its approval, it no longer exists in me. And to a large extent, it's because of self-improvement. When you work hard consistently and see results in the gym, growth in your business, and improvement in your critical thinking and speaking skills, you subconsciously know that you are living to your full potential and 90% of people around you are not. And this realization kills all need to prove yourself to other people. Now the only one whose expectations you want to match is your own. So the question is, how do you improve yourself so much? And in this video, I am going to answer just that. One of the things that typically happens with us humans when we watch videos on self-improvement, we get all motivated and start writing down our goals. Things like, I am going to get a great physique, or I'm going to finally start my business. But just 4 days later, poof, you are back to living the exact life you were living as soon as that burst of motivation disappeared. Now don't get me wrong, this does not mean that setting goals is bad. But think about this, a goal merely represents a destination that you want to arrive at. However, you never constructed the exact path to travel to that destination. And this exact path is your system. Without systems, you're just going to rely on raw willpower, which is a temporary resource and it's bound to run out. So here's what I want you to do. Figure out what your goals are for this season of your life. For example, a person could have two goals. The first one being they want to get in the best shape of their life. And the next one being that they want to get a 4.0 CGPA in university. Just a pro tip, don't have too many goals on the table, because the man who chases many rabbits ends up catching none. I would rather have 1 or 2 goals that I actually achieve than have 4 different goals that I fail to achieve. The next step is to ask yourself this critical question. What are the things that I need to do every day in order to accomplish these goals? In the case of getting in shape, the most obvious one is that I need to work out and I need to have 2-3 high quality nutrition rich meals. In the case of getting a 4.0 CGPA, perhaps the answer is that I need to study 3 to 4 hours a day. Now what you have done is that you have carved out the exact path that will take you to your destination. You no longer have to guess what is to be done. However, just because the path is obvious doesn't mean you're going to walk it each day. So the last step is to fix the exact times at which you will be walking these paths every single day. So maybe you do 3 to 4 hours of study as soon as you wake up from 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. Then you probably have work, university, or other commitments. So the next period of free time that you have is between 2 to 3 p.m. And this is where you decide to hit the gym. Lastly, your meals and sleep are just as important as the work that you're doing. So you absolutely need to fix a time for them too. What you have now constructed is not just a routine, it is a blueprint to accomplish all your goals. All you have to do now is wake up, follow and protect this blueprint. If you can just manage to execute this blueprint for the next 6 months, you would have accomplished all your goals just like that. Okay, so here's the truth. No matter how disciplined or productive you get, you might still have bad days. And on those days, you're gonna feel like procrastinating and not feel like doing the tasks on your blueprint. The way the typical person reacts to these bad days is by abandoning the blueprint altogether and instead just sedating himself with instant pleasure. And before they know it, a bad day turns into a bad week. In this chapter, what I want to do is equip you with tools and techniques to use during your bad days when you just don't feel like doing things. The first of these techniques is the task breakdown rule. Think of it this way. When you visualize a task in its entirety, it then appears to be much harder to do. For example, to me as a content creator, each YouTube video takes around 15 to 20 hours of work. When I think of the task of creating another YouTube video in its entirety, it appears to be very demanding, and on my bad days, such high amount of effort requirement is going to cause me to put off that task entirely. However, if you apply the task breakdown rule and rather view your task as a collection of subtasks, then you are much more likely to get going. Here's how. The task of creating a YouTube video can be broken down into the following subtasks. Number 1, creating a thumbnail. Number 2, writing a script. Number 3, recording and studio setup. then there is editing the introduction and editing each of the chapters. On the days that I feel like procrastinating, I do not create a 20-hour YouTube video. I just pick one of the subtasks that I'm willing to do. It could be just creating a thumbnail or just editing chapter 1. This way, the perceived effort requirement to do a task is much lower, so you're more likely to get moving. And here's a pro tip. If the subtasks still feel large, feel free to further break them down. Like writing a report can be broken down into writing a chapter, which can be further broken down into just writing a page, which can still be broken down into writing just one paragraph. Just be honest with yourself and talk to yourself like, hey buddy, I know we don't feel like doing much today, so what's the best that we can manage to do? And here's a surprising fact. Many a times I have started with a very tiny task, but eventually I ended up doing much more, because that tiny win fuels you to do bigger things. I want you to imagine 2 scenarios. In the first one, you have a young man in a lively city. He is ambitious and he really wants to leave his mark on the world. He decides that he wants to start a business and make an impact. But the problem is, there are clubs right under his apartment. Weed is legalized in a city and all his friends smoke and are ambitionless. This dude has Tinder, Bumble and a bunch of other degenerate dating apps on his phone. The question is, do you think this man is going to have the same urgency to do all the not so fun tasks that are required to start and run a business, given that he has so many distractions and quick sources of pleasure all around him? Now I want you to consider a second scenario. In this scenario, this young man is teleported to a hut in Antarctica. There are no clubs in this region, no Tinder, no social media apps. None of the people around him smoke or drink. All that he has in this apartment is a wooden chair and a wooden table. In this scenario, the act of working on his business is the most stimulating thing that he has going on for him. And that makes it more likely that he will do what needs to be done. And trust me, this isn't just some theory either. Bill Gates, the co-founder of Microsoft and one of the most successful entrepreneurs in history, used to take what he called think weeks. Like twice a year, he would completely isolate himself in a remote cabin with no meetings, no employees, no distractions, so he could entirely focus on reading, thinking, and solving important problems. Even the most famous psychologist Carl Jung, he took this idea even further. He built himself like a stone tower in the countryside, like far from all city life, and he would just go there and reflect on his work and think deeply. Lastly, the author of the Harry Potter books, J.K. Rowling, one of the best-selling writers of all time. She used a similar strategy. While finishing parts of Harry Potter books, she checked into luxury hotels specifically to escape distractions and focus completely on writing. Because sometimes the easiest way to do meaningful work is to put yourself in places where there's nothing more interesting to do. I am being realistic. I know most of us cannot afford to just disappear into some cabin in the woods or move to a hut in Antarctica, but we can still apply the same principle by turning our current environment into a hut in Antarctica. Delete the social media apps that waste your time. Put your phone on flight mode when you work. Keep your desk free from distractions and make it slightly inconvenient to access things like video games, Netflix, or other forms of instant gratification. The goal isn't to just completely eliminate all pleasures from your life. It is just to remove enough competing stimuli such that your goals become one of the most interesting things that you can do in a day. When I was a teenager, I was a very insecure, fragile person, and to be honest, my self-image was just down the gutter. I pretty much thought that I was a good-for-nothing loser who could do nothing right in life. But luckily, somewhere along the line, I came across these self-improvement videos on the internet. And back then, I used to watch creators like Hamza, Jordan Peterson, and a couple of others. And they were talking about things like delayed gratification, stop watching lustful videos, and choose to spend your time wisely. And all of these were like eye-opening things to me back then. But the more that I started spending my time into things that actually grew me as a person, things like praying to God, working out, learning new skills, starting a business, being a man of principles and morals, because all these things, they are going to push you. They're going to demand that you improve. They are going to feel uncomfortable to do. But that is what builds your self-control, your self-image, that you are a person who can do hard things and just not someone who sedates himself with quick temporary pleasures. And just by doing these things for 6 months, my self-image was now way better. I felt a lot more in control of my emotions, and for once in my life, I felt happy. That's all for today, folks, and in case no one has told you this, I am rooting for you.